Welcome back, everyone, and after some videos of horror and dark situations, it's time to look at something a little more fun, with the Epic suggesting that I make a video about versus Imposter. So, thank you, the Epic, for the suggestion, and I've got at least one more waiting in the wings I'll get to after this one, but I'm always open for more. With that, let me just catch up some of you about what this thing's based off of, so you don't feel a little lost. Like I said, it's a Friday Night Funkin' mod based off Among Us. And if there was ever a surprise indie game hit that was bigger than Friday Night Funkin', it would be Among Us. It's a simple game with a simple explanation, but that simplicity opens it up to a lot of interpretations or stories created by the actions of the players, or even you when you're the player. It's a multiplayer game on everything from phones to consoles, and it's pretty much a love child of Clue and John Carpenter's The Thing. Not to be confused with Phil Harris's The Thing. You play a crew member trying to fix problems in a research facility, spaceship, skyscraper, or airship. Hindering this is that up to 3 of your mates are assigned the role of Imposter, a sneaky shape-shifting alien out to kill you and others either directly or through sabotage. You can try to get rid of the imposters by holding emergency meetings, but you're only able to talk to each other during these meetings, probably to keep people from screaming, "It's black!" while getting chased through a hallway. This means mistakes can be made, usually by the imposters bluffing or covering their tracks well enough, or just general confusion. And you might eject or otherwise execute innocent crew members while the imposter still wreaks havoc. Now, if you do die and there's still imposters left, both crew members and imposters come back to the game as ghosts, so they can still fix or sabotage stuff. That way you still get to play and contribute instead of waiting around twiddling your thumbs. It's a fun little game and you can't go wrong giving it a try, and unlike Friday Night Funkin', there's no surprises that might make it kid-unfriendly.
God effing damn it. Well played, you little shit.
Also, you'll notice this footage is from the mod, not Among Us itself. As you'll see soon, the mod does a wonderful job of using nearly everything that can happen in Among Us, to the point that after playing it, you'll get a good grasp of how it actually works. That's the gist of what the game is for the 2 of you out there who don't know about Among Us. It barely has a story outside of how the players interact, and it's very light on music. So how do you make a music mod out of that? Well, you get creative for starters. The main vocals typically are the guitar string plucks heard during the body announcement, not that one, or a more synth instrumental. This winds up making most of the songs involving boyfriends sound like his singing is led by instrumentation and not just a rap battle. Meanwhile, the art comes off as a near-perfect fit for both games. Along with that, the story and setting of the mod comes off more like a cartoon adaptation. By that I mean there are central characters and more or less consistent characterizations, but overall, even for the main week, there isn't a deep amount of lore to get into. The stories and lore are generally constrained to the moments, and just like playing a game of Among Us, when everything's over, everything resets back to a baseline at the start of a new week. There's exceptions, but we'll cover those. And that's probably the best way to approach making a mod for something like this. Like versus Sonic.exe, this mod feels more like a bunch of fans that came together to create and celebrate something that they enjoyed, rather than, say, make it an unnecessarily edgy remake that loses sight of what people enjoyed about it in the first place. To start with, the story level select menu is fairly open, where we can choose right out of the gate which of the weeks to play through. Now there is a big bad involved with this stuff, so the weeks or stages along the mostly straight paths involve either him or the crew that's tied up in his plans. The branching paths are more side stories with different opponents and setups. Nearly all the weeks play out in the same way though, mostly mirroring the inevitable events of an Among Us game. That said, a lot of the humor in the mod comes from the banter during cutscenes and the interactions of the in-game characters with boyfriend and girlfriend. And continuing a long tradition started by Friday Night Funkin' itself, this is another mod with awesome music, great art, and bad words. so keep that in mind because a couple of the lines in here might cross yours. And just to be clear about this, the actual Among Us game is fairly family friendly. If you don't have a problem with Tom and Jerry style violence, or actually I don't think it even gets that bad, it's just cartoony. But also, nobody can ever control what's said in chat. The first week has us introduced to our first imposter, Red, who gives us some nice songs. And then proceeds to take out Girlfriend. And then Boyfriend. All played for laughs, then played like Among Us, where Boyfriend and Girlfriend come back as ghosts to finish one last song, while Red's cover is completely blown. In a nice touch, Boyfriend's vocals actually get changed a bit to make it fit his new spectral form. But wait, how is there more if they got killed? Well, they've jumped into the actual game again, so by the game's rules, they come back to life at the start of a new round, or even at the end of it when it's all over. They even discuss how they died last round when they come across the next imposter, Green. This is where I noticed the songs took a step up in difficulty and complexity. So, I had to reach deep down, gather up all my training and my ability, focus, and use skills that I never knew I had to make sure that I went through these songs fully, completely, and made sure. Look, I tried, but this video wouldn't get finished for another month if I didn't take the easy way. Doesn't stop the music from being fun to play though, and when I'm able to keep the pattern and rhythm, I can hold my own for a while. Back to the music, the 3 songs with Green are different versions of the songs with Red. They fit the higher difficulty with the rhythm and beats, but they're still clearly different and new. I love the jazzy tune for Sussus Tugus, and the saxophone break was surprising and amazing. The next song, Lights Down, is again its own twist on the second song with Red, but incorporates power outages, not just in the song, but in the end of that little segment of the story where boyfriend and girlfriend escape to go check on the reactor. And I'd say this is one of my favorite songs in the mod, but there's really nothing in here I don't like. If I had to pick a favorite, I keep changing my mind. In any case, Reactor is a really good song to cap off the week. Except there's one more. As the reactor overloads and everyone else gets cleared out, boyfriend and girlfriend are chased out of the building by a transformed Green. By the way, has boyfriend always had the Newgrounds initials on his shoes like that, or was that something this team came up with? The ending, though, is where I have my only real problem with this mod. Not really enough to give it a strike or anything, but we get a bunch of openings and endings to these chapters and stages, but no real endings or closure. Song's over, everyone goes home, I guess. And to be fair, it doesn't need to be a complicated or long ending, just a short little scene. We were set up by the first week to have that completeness to it, but not often does it actually get completed fully like that. But even though we get the impression of overarching stories or characters in this mod, we also get the impression that this is being played off more like a Saturday morning cartoon show. And to be frank, that's actually a bit how Among Us operates. With what's implied for the final song, though, I'm pretty sure girlfriend is going to save boyfriend with her ever-present, overpowered demonic abilities, such as being the only one that grabbed a parachute. Now, week 3 is the start of a sort of multi-part story. The duo meets an actual crewmate and sings a song as is literally described in their task logs. Now there's a bit of a secret to this level, but I'll come back to that later with the side stories. I love this song and I love playing it. After a second song that includes a joke worthy of the Deadpool movie, not for kids, remember? The plot thickens as Yellow gets killed by White in full view of the witnesses. And I still chuckle at that little counterattack Boyfriend gives before we find out White is the furthest from deserving that halo of his as you can get. Another good song, and we find out White isn't the only imposter this time, as Black gets the drop on the duo. Boyfriend now has to keep running for his life as Black takes a stab at him, leading to double kill, where Boyfriend has to contend against Ebony and Ivory together in harmony. The ending implies that Black wants to finish off Boyfriend on his own, and we get that showdown in week 4, Defeat. Here, Black shows his true colors as the big bad of the mod's story and setting, and you're required to choose how many misses you'll get before you fail the song. You can choose 5, but no matter what, if you miss too much, it's over. Oh, and to mention the respawning thing again, you'll notice amongst the bodies is one of Boyfriend's previous ones. I'll dip into the free play section real quick because after completing Defeat, to unlock the true final song against Black, you're going to have to complete the song Identity Crisis. Here you face off against not just an imposter version of Monotone Doc, one of the mod's artists, but also previous opponents in what I feel comes off as a test to see if you're actually worthy of getting that last song. Appropriately, it's named Finale. Unfortunately, you only get to see the cutscene once, and I wasn't recording at the time because I was doing a practice run through the mod so that I could get better footage when I went through another time. Sorry about that. It's one of the more creepy moments of the mod though, with the level select becoming more ominous as you make your way to the challenge. There's no instant loss in this one, but Black has definitely become much more threatening. Now, Black will continue to show up throughout the mod after this point, but his direct confrontations with the player are more or less finished at this point. So I'll take the opportunity now to delve into the background and information about him. Official lore of the mod is that Black is actually a malevolent entity somehow tied within the game's code, and the rest of the people you've been coming across are mostly players. Although to prevent confusion, I do have another thought about that. It's possible this could be a situation similar to Reboot, where the crewmates have personalities and existences outside the times the players are playing. And Boyfriend and Girlfriend are crossing paths with those versions. After all, there are bios and histories written for the crewmates as if they were their own characters and not just players controlling them. Anyway, what's suggested about all this is that when Black is part of a game round, he's generally always a dangerous imposter and always tries to take the lead and create some sort of planning with the other imposters to cause as much mayhem as possible. And to aid with all this, he apparently has a power to travel between different game lobbies. So If there's any wild theory to take with all this, it would be my assumption that he somehow has some control over who does become an imposter in the game rounds. That said, I'm pretty sure the Black we see fingering Red in week 1 isn't the same, since he has not only a different hat, but also different visor. Either that, or they just had him look different at the time. This is the earliest part of the mod that was developed after all. Not much else to say about him, other than he's a villain designed with a fairly simple explanation, but also varied execution in how he's used. The next week's opponent is Maroon, and he just doesn't give a damn about getting along with anyone. There isn't much else to discuss that won't be a repeat of before, though. The great songs and some amusing banter leading to another Fade to Black ending. His monster form is pretty awesome looking, though. After that, we get a week that shows us what other ways Black can spread his evil. And while I did say he makes attempts to seemingly coordinate or control the other imposters in the game, he also seems to be able to have some sort of control over the characters within the code itself. And that'll come up in a little bit. Gray was working hard with his mini Gray, hanging around and learning the ropes when an emergency meeting was called. Black manages to convince everyone to eject Big Gray, and quite frankly the cutscene does a good job telling the story and having us feel the sadness and loss. Then Black takes Mini Gray, who, in being a pet in the game, is actually an in-game character and not a player, under his wing and raises him to become a psychopathic killing machine. A nice story and background to Gray and what kind of things Black is capable of doing. And since Gray is another entity within the code of the game itself, either Black comes back to the lobby Gray resides at, or travels with Black between lobbies. This is the part of the mod that's more darker and threatening in tone, even taking into account the songs against Black. Those felt more like the boss battles they were. This stage gives off a more purposeful vibe of fear and foreboding. After that's over, we come to the final main week. And once again, boyfriend and girlfriend meet a friendly face. This time, Pink is legitimately looking to make friends, and they sing a couple songs that actually seems to be a fit for what Pink's bubbly and happy personality seems to be. I really like all the songs in this stage, and I really think they fit the personality of the week as a whole, but I'm kind of a sucker for synthwave these days, so take that as you will. The third song is when a couple of things happen, however, because, well, nothing can ever stay good in this mod or Among Us. Gray has been hanging out in the background, and after Black makes an entrance to cut the power, Pink is left alone to stand against Gray. Just as Gray is a psychopathic crewmate, Pink turns out to be an imposter that is actually friendly and doesn't want to hurt anyone. It's been revealed Pink is somehow another imposter within the game's code, so isn't a player, but isn't tied to Black apparently. That little bit of info might actually shed light on why she wants to focus on making friends so much, because with that in mind, she might actually be alone when there's no players around. And returning players are a sight for sore eyes for her. Continuing the idea of the crewmates being their own characters, however, she apparently does have a continuing relationship with Yellow. Now, that was the main stages of the game, the core episodes of the cartoon, so to speak. But there are side stories and weeks that you've seen on the navigation menu. To start out with, there's Logos Week, which has a couple fun holiday songs. And then there's Rousey Rival. We get a surprise during this one where, at the end of the second song, we find out boyfriend and girlfriend are the imposters this time. Which, considering how Among Us works, I guess it was only a matter of time before they drew that straw. Also, the crewmate turns out to be a hamster controlling a robot. Apparently a shout-out to the Rivals of Aether series. Next is an interesting stage you can get to, either with selecting it on the menu, or, the more fun way, clicking the hidden teleporter button when singing with Yellow. This takes boyfriend and girlfriend to one of my favorite indie series, and they face off against Henry Stickmin. If you don't know the series, it's a hilarious choose-your-own-adventure style game, which this mod takes a moment to give homage to. The way the songs play out is interesting as well. First you sing against Henry. Then Henry calls a friend to sing out a plan with them. Reinforcements arrive in the third song. Then, as a finale, you face a couple of the villains from the games. Before the teleporter brings boyfriend and girlfriend back to the start of week 1. It was fun to play through and a nice inclusion of another game members of the Among Us team worked on. Which, as it turns out, the dev team for Among Us, Inner Sloth, gave assistance to this mod's developers for this stage. Well, this might be the first and so far only time the original developers of a property have aided the development of a Friday Night Funkin' mod. It's still an unofficial mod, so as much as it looks and feels like a Saturday morning cartoon rendition of Among Us, it's still not official. That said, it does give curiosity about what would happen if there was official collaboration, though. I mean, Pico and other Newgrounds staples are already all over the place in the official Friday Night Funkin' game, so man, who else could there be? Finally, there's Week J, and I hold this one to last for a reason. This is a more self-contained story than the other weeks, and a more complete one, too. Some of it actually started life as a separate mod before becoming part of this one. We start off singing with Chersalsi until Red Mungus, different from the Red Imposter earlier, kills him and takes over the rest of the song. The second song becomes really impressive, with the voting time mechanic being played out as 4 singers try to figure out who the imposter is, with Red Mungus singing notes on your side of the screen. It helps give that confusing and chaotic feel of the arguments going on. After a third song, where boyfriend gets rescued from a last-ditch attempt on his life, everyone joins in for a final song where they celebrate their victory. It was a fun week and really gave a feeling of a musical version of Among Us playing out. In terms of the free play songs, I'm going to cover a handful of them, but I will say all of them are really good and worth playing. But because they're all kind of like single-shot episodes, it would just be repetitive if I went through each and every one of them. To start with, you'll need to unlock most of these free play songs with the beans you've been getting rewarded with as you play through the game. The same currency you win in Among Us, and just like Among Us, you can unlock new skins, characters, and little pets to use during the free play songs. Some of these are harder to unlock than others. For example, Salsis Mugus has a chef version of boyfriend singing, and you have to get 95% accuracy in this song to be able to buy and use that version of Boyfriend in other songs. And if you use a different character, take note that your voice won't change to match. So first up, I'll half-jokingly say Room Code is the obligatory Pico song in the mod. But in seriousness, Pico is kind of the Robin to Boyfriend's Batman in the main game anyway, so I'm not going to hold anything against using him. More notable is the return of our Saxy Imposter from Sussus Tugus. Gotta help YouTube's subtitle auto-translate on that sentence. A fun song, and I'll make a point here about that. If you know nothing about Among Us, or especially nothing about the memes and online personalities associated with some of them, the only thing left in this mod is the quality of the gameplay and the music, which can be more or less said for all the other mods out there. In the free play songs, this is much more apparent, where there's little connection and story with most of them. So like with the rest of this mod, in free play you're going to see a lot of excellent art, presentation, and gameplay, but in the end, the music is what really helps sell all this. However, we are going to see a number of special guests in the coming songs. Chippin' and Chipping features Seavol rapping against Pip. And if you recognize those names, Seavol is all over the place as a modder, while Pip is someone that brought us a mod showcase event called Funkin' Forward, and helped spread the word on tons of the mods out there.
Where am I?
After these two songs, it unlocks Torture, where the two of them throw one of the mod's artists named Ziffy into a chair, and take part in a song that actually changes composers a number of times throughout it.
Hey, can I help? Who invited this guy?
What are you doing? Get the hell out of here!
If you think that was interesting, let's take a look at who.
I didn't do it.
Nope.
And neither did you.
Negative.
So who did?
This song is based on a really funny Who's On First kind of joke from another video I'll link to, but it's hard to pick up on the full effect in the song. The punchline is still there and still works in a slightly different way, but it's still fun to play.
Get it?
I'm going to kill everyone, starting with you! Aha! So it was you all along!
I do recommend watching the video though. It's hard to pull off this kind of joke, and making use of Among Us for it definitely helped the delivery. Sussus Nuzzus is a guest composer's song. Lunaxis made a new arrangement of their song No More Nuzzles for this stage, which was a song used in the fan ROM hack Undertale Halloween hack, which was a merging of Toby Fox's Undertale and his ROM hack of Earthbound called Earthbound Halloween hack. Speaking of Toby Fox, IDK features a doodle Toby made in one of his newsletters depicting himself as a crewmate. But the real special event in free play is Monotone Attack.
3, 2, 1, go!
Like Voting Time and Week J, this has 4 singers involved at once. However, it's the avatars of the dev team and composers, surrounded by others on the team singing in Not McDonald's. Almost like it's a big rap party after everything's been finished. You sing as the sock puppet, by the way. A nice fun way to end the mod, not counting the joke song, and quite the curtain call for the team. I've constantly brought up how fan creations can help give exposure to people's talents that they otherwise might not have, and this is another one of those moments. But most importantly, this was a music mod for a game that really didn't have anything in terms of music. I know I've brought that up a number of times so far, but that is fairly impressive that they're able to create this music and presentation in the game that still feels like a really close fit to how the actual game works. There's a lot of talent and skills shown here, and considering this mod has over 40 songs, I'm amazed it was able to not just be finished, but consistently good throughout. Kudos to the team for what they were able to make, and a big thank you to the Epic for suggesting this video. It really was a fun mod. In fact, in my poking around, I found out there's currently a fan mod of this one being worked on. I'll leave a link for that in the description. I discovered it pretty late in the making of this video, so I didn't really download it and play it out myself, but if anybody out there wants me to, give it a shot and make a video on it, let me know and I'm all for it. It effectively role swaps everybody so that, all the good guys are bad guys and vice versa. Unfortunately, there is one more thing I discovered while making this video that definitely deserves special mention. The creator of Red Mungus, Cooper, passed away from cancer shortly after the mod's release. A GoFundMe for St. Jude's Children's Hospital was created by the director of this mod in Cooper's name, so I will definitely be pinning a link for that in the video. I'll have my usual credits tribute for the team, but before that, a moment of silence and a chance for us all to give tribute to Cooper. And if there was ever a time it deserved to be said, take care of yourselves out there.